Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for Business Plan Basics. My name is Eleanor Chatterton. I am a librarian at the St. Louis Public Library, and I've been organizing this series of small business programs with the St. Louis Small Business Development Center. We are so glad you're with us today. After the program, and by after I mean next week sometime, I'll send a link to the recording of this program so you can refer back to it. I'll also include some references to various library sources that might be helpful to starting a process. And you'll have my contact information. You can ask me any questions. I will also include the contact information for our fantastic presenter. I always say, go to the expert for your real questions. So our presenter today is Amina Abdul Malik. She is a business counselor with the St. Louis Small Business Development Center, and she specializes in business plan development and startup services. And so with that, I will turn it over to you, Amina.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Eleanor. And as I always say, and I'm not just sugarcoating this so you can keep working with me, you're one of my favorite partners to work with. I love the public library and the resources that they have to offer for entrepreneurs like yourself. And we'll talk a little bit about those resources as part of this presentation today. But thank you all so much for joining me. My name is Amina Abdul Malik, and I am a business development counselor with the St. Louis Small Business Development Center. Ooh, that's a wordy one. How is anybody already familiar with the SBDCs at all, or the SBDC program? Feel free to come off of mute or type in the chat as well. Okay, Crystal says not at all. Well, I'm very, very glad that you've joined us for this class today. If you're not familiar with the Small Business Development Centers, we are a nationwide support network for entrepreneurs like yourselves. We assist small business owners with either looking to start their small business or grow an existing business as well. We assist with things like registration, business planning, getting access to capital, preparing yourself for employees, preparing yourself to sell products, doing market research, marketing strategies and plans, as well as training classes such as this one. So we do one-on-one no-cost counseling with our clients, and I'll have a link for you all towards the end of the class that you all can use to get signed up and registered as a client with the SBDC, which allows you to get access to all of the different resources we have in terms of business planning templates, financial management software and tools, as well as getting access to our counseling team and being able to sign up for a one-on-one counseling session with us as well. My office is actually located in downtown St. Louis. I'm currently located in the T-Rex building, if you all have heard of that large tech co-working space down here on Washington Avenue. So I've been here for several years with the organization, and I'm very passionate about what I do and working with you all, the business owners, the entrepreneurs. I love to get, while we kind of go through the agenda here, just some brief introductions. If you would like to type a brief introduction in the chat or come off of mute, that will be great. I just would like to know how you all found out about the class, your name, and if you already have started working on a business plan, or if this is going to be your first time working on a business plan for your business. And I guess we can start with who I see here on camera with me, Cheryl, and thank you again for joining us. If you'd like to come off mute and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Good morning, how are you doing?
Good morning.
My name is Cheryl Williams, and I'm with Gateway Foster and Adoptive Care. And also this morning, I'm representing Less Focus too. So I'm representing two organizations today.
Gotcha.
Gateway is an advocacy and support organization for kids in foster care and for their resource providers. Less Focus was just recently came online. It's a group of St. Louis area first responders that are trying to
that's the girl I found out how to
trauma to provide trauma services, getting the community connected with different organizations that can help them. I don't really know all their thing because they just asked me to kind of sit in for this morning because they're all at work.
Gotcha.
What's going on?
Okay, Well, thank you so much for joining us, Cheryl. I believe you'll get a bunch of information to take back to the rest of the team. And I also know that even though if you're working with or for a not-for-profit organization, there are still a bunch of similarities in terms of the needs for a business plan and that type of business strategy, and having that back office prepared and ready. The same way you have to do that for a for-profit business, you have to do that as well for an organization that serves other people as well. So that information still applies. So thank you for joining us, Cheryl. I see Jay Swartz just typed in the chat, SLPL website. Oh, so you found out from the class, from the website, and interested in how a small business plan is written. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Swartz. And this class today, as we kind of go into the agenda here, is going to go over, and today we're going to learn about the different components of a successful business plan. We're also going to talk about the beginning, how to order your steps and prepare yourself to even begin writing the plan, and how to also complete that plan, and then where to take it and how to use it and take it back into the business and make it work for you. The business plan, I've seen so many different templates for these plans through my years with the organization, but the purpose of your business plan is always going to be to demonstrate the potential success for that small business. All of the factors of your business should be researched, and we're going to talk a little bit about market research today. They should be planned for, and everything's documented in that formal plan. Is there anyone else who wants to introduce themselves? And feel free to just unmute. And I see Crystal also, Crystal McAllister. Thank you for joining us again. You saw the information in a Facebook ad. That's pretty cool. That means some marketing is working. So that's good to know, Eleanor. And you are a new entrepreneur, so you're going to be starting off a business plan fresh for your new small business.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us. And if you feel free, if you all have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat as we go along, or feel free to unmute yourselves as well. But we'll go ahead and dive into this. There's a bunch of information in this presentation, so I'm going to try to make sure we have enough time to get through everything today. But you all are all here to learn more about a successful business plan. And there are a lot of different things that the business plan can do for you as the entrepreneur, the business owner. It really is a roadmap for your business. Even if you are already in business and have sales revenue on the books already, your business plan is still the tool that is going to be that living document that dictates the operations and describes how your business is going to continue to grow. It's going to definitely be required if you are going out and seeking some type of lending for your business formally. Any banker or formal lender is also going to request to see a copy of that business plan. But the business plan can have several different tools or purposes. It definitely is going to help you clarify the current status of your organization, your business. And the business plan is going to also help you formalize your vision and those the mission statement that you have in place for your company. So your business starts off as an idea. You may have a skill, or you may see a need or a problem that needs to be solved. Regardless of how that business idea starts, you have to use the business plan to help you formalize and actually define those concepts and figure out exactly what those tangible measurements of success are. So also within the business plan, after you kind of identify and define what success is and what your value proposition is, you're also going to use the plan to help you identify how you're going to complete those tasks, or how your business is going to solve those problems. So the business plan also is going to help you identify what those key actions and resources you're going to need in order to provide that value to your potential customers. And then also the plan puts a timeline on it. So essentially the business plan provides structure to your idea. And finally, it's always going to demonstrate the potential for success. Now, who needs a business plan? Obviously, you as the business owner use the business plan as a roadmap for yourself to start the business and grow. But If you are going out and seeking some type of bank financing or some type of investment, the business plan is going to strengthen your case and help that potential investor understand how your business is going to be successful and how they're going to get their return on their investment. But the business plan can also be used by your managers, your future managers and employees. Most of us here, I hope or assume, don't have employees yet. Those can get a little bit costly. But if you are planning to have employees in the future or have managers or those people that are supporting you or helping you with your business, even suppliers or partners can use your business to answer questions and get a better understanding of your organization. So many times the business plan can help you strengthen your position with a supplier and maybe get a more favorable contract if they read your plan and your plan exhibits your business's success, your potential success there. And even your potential employees can read the business plan to get a better idea of the values and the goals of your company as well. So there are a lot of different people and a lot of different uses for a business plan. Now, here is kind of a brief description of a typical business plan outline. I've been with the SBDC now for over 4 years, and I've seen over 20 different business plan templates. And all of the different templates use different language. They may be organized differently, but every successful business plan that you'll see will have these components in some capacity. And we're going to go through these different sections of the business plan so you have a clear understanding of what belongs in these sections in order to demonstrate your potential success. And before we kind of go through this outline, I will also let you know that one of the resources we have through the SBDC, we have access, and Eleanor also has access to some different business planning tools and templates. At the SBDC, we also have some of those tools. I actually work with clients individually to work through business plans and financial projections. So if you do register as a client with us, I will be able to kind of share with you some of those templates as well and spreadsheets to kind of assist you with actually building the plan after this and taking this information to the next step. But your business plan is always going to start off with a cover sheet. We have to give that basic information about the business so they know who to contact when they want more information. And every business plan is also going to have an executive summary. An executive summary is essentially just that. It is a summary of everything else in the plan, highlights of the business description, and all these other sections here. Because it's a summary of the rest of the plan, this section is usually saved for last. So it is presented first in the plan, but when you're working through a business plan, we're typically going to work on the executive summary last. Then you have the business description. This section describes the why behind your business idea and also describes a little bit of the who. So in the business description section, you will have several paragraphs that explain what the business opportunity is or what problems your business is helping to solve, or what jobs your business is helping your customers actually get completed. And it's also going to have your mission statement and vision statement. And overall, your business description is where the reader is going to get a clear understanding of why your business exists and why there is a reason or what value there is for your company to go out and reach from its customers. So it'll include that mission statement. And the mission statement is a brief statement that basically describes the purpose of your company or organization. Your mission statement is a broad macro level statement that kind of dictates and guides your actions and day-to-day operations within the company. That will also be included in that business description. Then you also have the market and customer section, one of my favorites, where we get into the fun stuff, which is understanding some of the who is your business going to be best served, who is your business best served to help or provide value to? So who are your ideal customers? Who will you be selling to? What does your market that your business exists in look like? And also, who is your competition and what's your unique value proposition or competitive advantage? So everything related to who you're selling to, and kind of how you're going to sell to them is within that market and customer section. And then the last two sections, the management and organization, is going to be very brief. That kind of just describes the legal structure of the company, some of the day-to-day operational structure of the company as well, who does what, and then the financial section we'll get into and discuss. And within the financial section, this section gives my clients sometimes a lot of headaches in the beginning. It's very scary when you figured out all of the narrative for your business plan, and you've already started to describe what the problem is, how you're going to solve it, and who you're solving it for. But the financial section is where you're going to describe how much money you need to solve that problem, where you're going to get that money from, and how that money is going to be spent, and also how cash is going to flow and how your company is going to make money on a month-to-month basis. And then also there's supporting documents, and we'll talk about what kind of supporting documents you can include within your plan as well. So let's jump into the first section, and this is going to be very brief, but the executive summary. And the executive summary, as I stated before, it's really going to be for a summary of the entire plan. So you're going to, and on the slide here, you're going to see kind of the minimum level of essential topics that should be included in this section. They're not listed in order. And one of the things you'll notice when you start to work through your business plan is your order that some of these sections can be reordered based on how you believe or how important you believe the topic is to your business. So if you believe your company has a very, very strong competency in understanding your competition and your competitive advantage, then you may want to try to lead with some of those sections where you are more confident. The contents of the executive summary are all going to be focused on one result, which is convincing your reader that the business will succeed. The next section is the business description. And within this section, we're going to talk a little bit more about the mission statement, but the mission statement is so broad. We've all heard of that term before. We all kind of know what a mission statement is, but I want to talk a little bit more actually about a concept statement. And we'll dive into that here. Here are the different contents of the business description section. You will obviously describe the company's name, the legal structure and ownership structure of the company. Is your company registered as a sole, or you don't register as a sole proprietorship, but is it just a sole proprietorship, or is it formally registered as an LLC or a C corporation? Also, the business description will have that mission statement that we talked about, as well as that concept statement. You're also going to have a description of your products or services and anything unique about their features or benefits. You're also going to discuss the business's history. What is the background of you as the owner and the company? How long have you been in business? What is the present status of the company? Are there any employees? And then you're also going to discuss the location, if there is a physical location or if the company is online, and what the future plans and goals for that company and in your business are. So all of these subsections belong in the business description segment. Went a little bit too far. And essentially the business description section is going to describe a little bit of all of these different things. It's going to tell you a little bit about what you do, how you do it, who you're doing it for, where you're doing it, and why. But all of this information in the business description is still somewhat macro broad level. So this section is where you're kind of setting the foundation for the reader. And we'll talk a little bit more about the detail that you add on to this as well. And really, when you think about creating a business plan, remember that your idea starts off as a seed. And in order for that seed to grow, it has to have all of these different roots. Okay? You know, it starts to grow out and spread with structure into that full tree. So you have an idea, and the more structure and planning that you put around that idea, the more chance you have for success with that. So let's talk a little bit about the concept statement. So now that you know why you're going into business and kind of have started to describe who you're going into business for, we can talk a little bit more about the concept statement. And the business concept builds on the mission statement and explains a little bit more of the how behind your success, and explains a little bit more how you plan to be successful. Now, the concept statement, and this is another document that I will be sending you all as a part of kind of the supporting documents for the class. And it has a list of these different 7 questions here. When you're creating a concept statement, you are going to be answering these 7 questions that you see on the slide. What does the product or service do? How is it unique, or what is different about it? What is different about that value proposition? Who is going to buy that product? And please don't tell me everybody. Why will they buy the product? Where will it be sold? When will it be sold? And how will it be promoted and sold? If you start to take a few minutes and take some time to try to answer these questions, you'll find that you have to do a little bit of research to get into detail with some of these. And it kind of forces you, as you work on your concept statement, to answer some of these questions and add more flesh and structure to your idea. When you're thinking about a successful business concept in a concept statement, you want your business concept to do one of these things at least. So your business concept should be, so the products or services that you actually offer need to fit in one of these criteria. The concept needs to be something new. It could be something better. And when we say better, keep in mind that better is subjective. Better for me does not mean better for you. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to figure out what better means. And that goes into kind of your target marketing and figuring out your ideal customers first. But your idea can be something new, something better. It could also be something that reaches an underserved market or a new market. We call that a niche. Or it could be something with a unique feature. So I have an example, let's say, of a local winery. And we know we have a bunch of wineries in Missouri. So if I'm thinking about starting a winery and I'm thinking of an innovative business concept or a business concept for my company, let's say I came up with the idea to serve unique wine that actually had pairings that was intended to be eaten or drank with local food varieties such as wild game or barbecue or home style meals that are very popular in this area. So what if I designed a wine brand that was meant to be paired with other local brands? That's something somewhat new. It's a unique feature, and it may even serve a new market. So when you're thinking through your business concept, start with your idea, but try to understand and answer those who, what, when, and why questions to better understand how that idea needs to be structured to actually be a business. Any questions about the business description section before we move on to marketing customers? Okay. So within the marketing section, this is always a fun one, but it also can get a little bit challenging because oftentimes we think of marketing as just advertising, but marketing is a lot more than that. And with your marketing starts with several different things. It goes from your product or your service design all the way to your marketing channels like your website, the social media that you use. But marketing is everything that you're doing to communicate your value to your customers. And within the marketing section of the business plan, you're going to explain how you're going to develop your strategies and tactics for understanding the market. You're also going to describe the resources you're going to need to market to your customers, and you're going to describe and understand what type of research needs to be done to better understand your customers, your competitors, as well as your industry. So the first step before you can start to describe how you're going to solve someone's problem and design your product or your service, you have to understand the market that you are entering or that your business is in. So understanding the market, and the market is that place, whether it be physical or virtual, or the environment that your products or services are being sold. So when you're thinking about doing or understanding your market and doing market research, you want to understand that marketing starts with being the overall approach for communicating with your customers. So you want to understand and include all of the activities and the actions that are going to be used by your business to understand who that customer is. So you're not only trying to understand who the customer is, you're also trying to understand what their needs are related to your business, how to reach them, and then how to get them to actually purchase that product or service. So marketing is the tool you're using to let the world know that your business exists. Now, when you're analyzing your market, you are analyzing several different things. You're analyzing the actual geographic location of your market if you're actually serving a local area. I know a lot of our businesses are online or consultant-based now. We are a gig-based economy now. So understand where your market is as a online retail business or a consultant. You still want to think with the same approach. Where are my customers looking for this type of service? Where are my customers frequenting this type of information? And that could be a website or a digital forum, just like it could be a zip code. You also are going to be researching the demographic traits for your customers. And we'll talk a little bit more about demographics here in just a second. But demographics are basic traits that you can group customers with that include things like age, race, income level. You're also going to want to understand and research your competitors. Competition is what makes the market work. So you want to understand who or what alternatives your customers are using, and then that will help you to propose and create a unique competitive advantage as well. When you're doing something called an industry analysis, which is something I would recommend reaching out to Eleanor and her team at the public library about, they have a bunch of different resources to help you with market research for your business. And I actually had a question from another class about patent research, and another librarian recommended you all as well, Eleanor, for patent research. So you all are, I know, champions in that as well. But if you are looking to, and you're at this point in the business plan where you're needing to better understand your industry and the market, you're going to kind of want to research and get an understanding of where the market stands now, what the trends are in that space, what economic sector is that industry in. So let's say, for instance, your industry is kind of that more broader scope that your business is in, and the market is that sub-segment that you're going to operate in. So if you were starting a bicycle company and making bicycles, you're in the transportation industry, but you're in the bicycle market, if that makes sense. So you want to understand what's going on within the industry, in the market. Is the industry growing? Is it stagnant? Is it expected to grow by 50% in 2 years? Is there any seasonality to my potential business? Am I going into lawn care and starting this business in the fall? Is there any major technological changes that are on the horizon? You want to understand if there's what regulation is like within that industry. So if you're going into a business designing t-shirts and selling t-shirts, and your main supplier is in China, you want to have and do some research on the environment there in terms of regulation to understand how that's going to affect your supply chain. So you want to make sure that you understand the environment that your business is going to be in. Same thing with your competition. You also need to understand and determine what your business's competitive position will be once it starts. So that involves understanding how large of a market and how many customers you're really going to have access to, and kind of estimating realistically how your business is going to compete and where it's going to be positioned based off of that. You also are going to evaluate your competition as it stands. No business operates in a vacuum. So it's very, very important for you to identify and also evaluate your competitors and determine where you stand relative to them. One very, very important thing to note, and this often trips up clients, because when you're starting your business, you're very excited, you're confident in your idea, you often will look at your direct competition, and that's it. Your number one competition as a startup business owner is not your direct competition most times. Most times, a lot of your competition is getting customers to understand that they have a problem that needs to be solved. So when you're analyzing your competition within this plan, make sure that you're not only evaluating your direct competition or those people doing the exact or similar thing, very similar things to you, but you have to look at your competition as who is solving similar problems as you, not who's providing the same things, but who's solving the same problems. And once you are able to look at competition that way, you're able to evaluate all of those different alternatives, which a lot of times involve your potential customers not solving that problem at all. Then, also within this section, and this is a very, very important part of your plan, is the target market section. I always tell my customers that, and I ask my clients this sometimes, who is your ideal customer? And they sometimes say everyone. Now, realize this as a business owner, you have very, very limited resources, very, very limited time. You're wearing so many different hats. You can sell to everyone, but you cannot target everyone. So when you're thinking about target marketing, you are trying to group and identify, you're trying to identify customers that will consistently find value in your product or service that are also attractive to your business. You're trying to figure out if there is a way for you to group your customers based on them having similar traits. And once you're able to identify a target market, you're able to kind of rank those different categories, or those different customer segments, and better understand how you can specifically communicate to them based on those group specific needs. And this section is one that I spend a lot of time on when I'm working with clients. And you have 7 questions here that are on this slide. And these questions that are here are questions that you can ask yourself to start to put together customer segments. Now, the first 4 questions here: who are they? How many are there? How much do they spend, and how often do they spend? These first 4 questions are demographic questions. The demographic traits that I mentioned that you can use to group customers with include things like age, race, family status, education, income level. So if you were starting a winery, one of your traits from one of your customer segment could include couples that are between the ages of 25 to 40, that have certain lifestyle interests. So when you're putting together customer segments, you're trying to group your customers together to best communicate with them and be able to better communicate value specifically to them. So these first 4 questions here on this slide help you identify the potential business that exists in your market area and how many of these potential customers you'll actually need to serve. Now, these questions are also going to help you create your sales projections. The last 3 questions are going to be helpful for understanding the knowledge that you need to have to create a value proposition for your customers. So the last 3 questions are going to help you actually create that value proposition, which is really like your promise or your solution that you're providing for that customer. So you can use these questions to start off some of your target marketing. Now, we've probably heard the term competitive advantage before, but what is competitive advantage? Competitive advantage is it all kind of goes back. I keep saying that term value proposition, but customers deem your services as the best solution to their problems based on this equation that you see here for value. And when we think about value, it's a very subjective term. And when you're thinking about your value, look at this equation here and remember that this quality is always going to be a subjective term. So when you're analyzing your product or your service's quality, before you can do that, you have to make sure that you have already selected your target customer segment. So when you're analyzing quality, it's not just analyzing quality based on your perception, it's based on the perception of your target customer segments that you have already described. So when a customer is trying to calculate the potential value of a product or service, they are going to look at and add up quality and add that with the belief that they're getting what they are promised. And then they're going to subtract the price of that product or service to get their ultimate value. Now, the definition of quality has 3 different components. When we think about quality, we often think about one of the components that you see here on the slide, which is it being free of defects. So when I think quality, I'm oftentimes talking about material. It's free from defects. There's nothing wrong with the product physically, but that's only one component of quality. The other 2 components of quality are that it actually solves the problem. So quality is graded on how well that product or service solves the problem, how much that product is free from defects, and also how much the product actually meets customer expectations. So if you analyze your product or service and what your customers' needs are, you'll be able to understand and kind of describe if your solution is meeting their standards for quality. Also, keep in mind that price is not just the cost of your product or service, but price is also the cost in terms of time and effort spent when working with that product or service as well. So if you all are in consulting or service-based businesses, please remember that the price that your customers, price for your customers is not just as simple as the price tag, but it also is a matter of how much time they have to spend and how much effort they have to put in to work with and get the solution that they're expecting. So all of that equation will get you value. And when you're analyzing your value, you want to make sure that you can differentiate yourself from your competitors in the customer's eyes. And that's essentially what competitive advantage is, how you're differentiating yourself with your value and quality against your competition. And as we wrap up the marketing customer section, I briefly just want to talk about something that I would like for you all to take with you as you all continue to work on your business plans and work on your business in general. Please remember the difference between a feature and a benefit. A feature is a factual statement about your product or service, whereas a benefit is something that your customer receives from that feature or from your product or service, whether that be directly or indirectly. So you can think of the benefits as kind of the solution to your problem, to the problem that the customer is trying to solve. So a good example of this, and this happens oftentimes when I'm working with clients and you're in that startup phase, I ask you to describe or tell me about your business. And let's say, for instance, I'm going back to my bicycle example. You say, well, my bicycle has self-cooling water bottle holders. My bicycle has polyester padded seats. Those are features of that product. But when you're thinking from a customer perspective, you want to try to turn those features and start communicating the benefit, excuse me, of those features instead. So instead of saying, oh, my bicycle has self-cooling water bottle holders, what does that feature provide the customer? That provides the customer a more comfortable riding experience. That also provides the customer the potential to ride longer because they're able to stay hydrated, or they're able to have a more luxury riding experience because of those padded seats. So there's a popular saying in the marketing field, features tell, benefits sell. So make sure that in your language, when you're writing your business plan, and even just speaking to people more about your business, that you are using the features to tell a story about how the benefit, and using the benefits to sell that product to your customer. And then finally, before we wrap up this marketing customer section, just to kind of go over some of the major sources for research, for your market research and getting a better understanding of your business. We always want to start with the free sources first. So please get in contact with your local library, their government entities here locally, chambers of commerce that are available that have access to a bunch of market research and information for different industries. Also, you have your local SBDC and Amina here as your counselor that can also assist you with market research requests. And then you also have some paid resources such as trade association reports. There's internet tools. Please be very, very careful with using the internet for market research. A lot of this information, as we know, has not been vetted, and you don't want to put that information into your business plan, pass that off to a potential investor, and not have quality information within your plan. And then you also have independent research, which can also be largely impactful. And that includes just observation, finding a mentor that's been there, done that, and even, surveying and observing your potential customers as well. Very, very impactful for your market research needs. Any questions before we get into the last two components, which are management organization as well as the financials? Okay. Within the management and organization section, there's not, this section does not take as long as some of the other ones. This section is where you're going to identify and describe the leadership structure, your organizational chart. And really, as a small business owner, if you were a C corporation with hundreds of employees, this section would be very, very large and include all of the operational and the organizational structure. However, for most small businesses, you are playing most of these key roles as yourself. So we use this management and organization section to describe the key roles that the company will need as it grows. You also use this section to describe the legal structure of your organization. If you plan to have any personnel in the future, what some of those requirements and policies for your employees will be, what the roles and responsibility of some of your key positions will be for your company. And all in all, this section is where you're going to describe how the business is organizationally structured. So cut and dry there, pretty simple, especially if you're a single member LLC. You're going to describe the legal structure, and you're also going to be future thinking and trying to think ahead of what some of those roles are that the business will need. Now, finally, the last section of the plan, one of my favorites as well, is the financials. Here's where we get to the nitty-gritty. We've already figured out why the business exists, who we're selling to, why we're selling to them, and how we're going to do it. Now we need to understand where these finances will come, what the finances will use for, and also come up with our projected financial statements to understand how money is going to flow through the business once it is started. So here's kind of a summary of the different components of that financial section. You're going to have to identify every bit of money it's going to take to start that small business. So those are your startup costs. You're also going to describe your break-even point and do a break-even analysis. Your break-even is going to help you identify exactly how much money you have to make to meet all of your expenses. Or if you're selling a product, you can do a unit break-even analysis and understand how many of that product need to be sold in order for you to meet and fulfill all of your expenses. And then you're also going to include in this section your financial statements. And we're going to go through those financial statements in just a moment. But the major financial statements are going to be the income statement, which is also called a profit and loss statement. The income statement shows you what your company has earned or made and how much your company has spent over a given time, a period of time, excuse me. And then the balance sheet shows you how much your company owns, how much your company owes at one period of time. And then we also have something called the cash flow statement, which I'll talk about here. So once your research is done, and you've done that market research, you're going to have to go ahead and use that research to create financial estimates. You may also hear the term pro forma statement. A pro forma is the same thing as projections. It's just projecting into the future. And we are going to look at an equation here which describes the exact amount you need to start your business. That equation includes, all of those startup costs. You're going to add in your initial operating expenses, and then you're going to add in working capital, which is that money that you use to orchestrate and facilitate day-to-day operations within the company. Initial operating expenses are all of those reoccurring expenses or costs that you have for your business that are not related to how much or how little you provide your product or service. So things like rent and payroll and prepaid insurance are part of your initial operating expenses, because if you sign a lease, doesn't matter if you make $5 or $10,000, you're going to still have to pay that rent. So this is kind of the equation you use to determine your base level needs for capital to get started. When you're looking at this equation, you're going to try to start to figure out how much of that funding is going to come from equity and how much of that funding is going to come from debt. Debt and equity are the two ways that you normally fund your business. Equity is what you inject as the owner, and debt typically comes and is repaid, or typically is repaid through the operations of the company as well. It comes through the form typically of a bank loan. So the first estimate that you need is your sources of funds. So let's say you need $100,000 for your food truck business, and you're going to put in a 10% equity injection of $10,000. So where are you going to use that $100,000? So this spreadsheet here is something that I can also provide you all, but you're going to start by estimating how you're going to use these funds. Where is that $100,000 going? What expenses is your business going to typically have? What is it going to cost to get your business up and running? The key here into everything with financials is attention to detail. You want to account for as much as you can in terms of your startup cost number. So for each of these categories that you see here, you're able to go through the categories and describe and draw up a list of everything you need to purchase. So if you are a store, you don't want to forget about the printer or the POS system or even a stapler, inventory, all of those tangible assets. But if you are a consultant or a service-based company, don't forget that your startup costs include things like the software you need to work with your clients. If there is a certification you need in order to get the clients and make or to meet or to reach some of your ideal customer groups, That certification is a part of your startup cost. Any type of special registrations or licensing you need, all of that should be included in your startup cost number. Also, don't forget that working capital. That working capital is kind of your cushion. That's your cash cushion you need to meet your expenses while your business gets going. In some cases, you'll see operating expenses and working capital blended, but sometimes you'll see it separated. Either way, you have to make sure whether you put it into initial operating expenses or working capital that you're accounting for those day-to-day operating expenses that your business is going to have. Finally, a part of this is also going to be your emergency funds. Emergency funds include all of that money that you put to the side just in case some unforeseen circumstance happens. And you want to make sure that you include that in your initial startup cost number, and don't wait until the business is started to try to save for emergency funds. So this spreadsheet here will kind of guide you through the different categories, the different typical categories, types of startup costs. Now let's talk about how to create and different sales approaches. One of the tricky things to do when you are working on your financials and your business plan is estimate how much you're going to make in revenue or sales. And there's a lot of different methodologies to approach coming up with the sales estimate. And we're going to kind of talk through some of the major three. The comparative sales approach is based on comparative information. You're going to look at your industry. You're going to look at the industry's typical sales. You're going to look at what your competitor sales are. And there are many different sources for this information. You can go through the trade organizations. There's information online, the economic census. You can watch and kind of just observe your competitors to kind of get an idea of their sales. And you can also obviously talk to people in the business and even just do a Google search and get information about sales benchmarks for that business type. But all in all, the comparative sales approach tries to benchmark sales from other companies or other places that are doing similar things, and you use that information to come up with your sales estimate. Next, you have the average sales approach. And this approach is pretty simple. To project sales using this approach, you will actually need to just count the number of transactions you expect in a specific period. So let's say, for example, you expect to sell, like you see on the slide here, 793 bottles of wine. And you expect and you anticipate and you plan to price that bottle of wine at $17. If you expect to sell that 793 bottles, you can expect to receive $13,481 in sales or revenue a month. So in this sample plan, the projected sales were just projected through this average sales method. And this one is very simple, but a lot of times if you're selling multiple products, you want to take some time out to kind of figure out what that real average sales price is, and that can take a little bit of time. But this is also something that I would love to work with you all on if you do start to work through those business plans a little bit more as well. Finally, the bottom-up sales approach. The bottom-up sales approach is, simply put, how much you need to cover the cost of your sales. So this is almost kind of like the break-even point. So if you're using the bottom-up sales estimate, your sales goal or your estimate for revenue is just how much you need to cover your operating expenses and the cost of your sales. And that's kind of the bare minimum. And then from there, you create your own expectations for profit to come up with that ultimate sales estimate. Now, out of all of these different sales approaches, sales estimate approaches, which one is the best? The right answer to that question is really, typically you're going to blend all three. You are going to look at comparative information, look at competitors, look at that industry and see what the typical sales rate is. You are going to also estimate how many of your products or services you're going to provide in a period of time. And you also are going to, at bare minimum, are going to expect to sell enough to meet your expenses. So the best sales estimate is typically going to be a blend of all three of these. For your projected cash flow statement, you're going to want to take a look back at your business. And one thing I'll say about this particular financial statement, the lenders and banks love this statement. It is their favorite to look at, one of their favorites to look at, because it gives them an accurate picture of how much liquid capital or cash on hand the business has at the end of every month. And sometimes a business can be profitable, but not liquid. Liquid assets are those assets that you can quickly convert to cash. And if a business is not liquid enough, then that makes that business more risky for the bank to lend to. So when creating a projected cash flow statement, you're going to go line by line and kind of ask yourself when you expect cash to come and go within your business. So you've already completed the sales projection, and now you're actually going to have to predict when you're going to collect from customers. Same thing with your expenses. You've already estimated those expenses. Now you're predicting with the cash flow statement how and when you're actually going to have to pay those bills. So one thing I will say, if you are a service-based business or you're providing consulting, any type of service-based company, your cash flow statement can be heavily impacted by your accounts receivable. Has anybody, and feel free to type in the chat or unmute, has anybody heard of the term accounts receivable? Okay. What accounts receivable is, okay, Crystal, you said you have, great. Accounts receivable is a line item on your financial statements, and thank you, April, you have heard of that as well. Your accounts receivable is that account where any money that your business is expected to receive in 30 days sits. So what happens to you as a service-based business, if you have customers that are not paying on time, your accounts receivable gets delayed, your accounts receivable amount gets decreased, or excuse me, that money sits in accounts receivable, I should say, and that makes your cash flow stagnant. That negatively impacts your cash flow. So you have to make sure that the service-based company, you are collecting payments within that 30 days because it keeps your cash flow moving so that you're able to work with new clients and customers and buy and purchase things and have that liquid cash on hand you need for that business to flow. So just be very aware of your accounts receivable and try to make sure that you are collecting payment promptly. The break-even analysis, we talked about this a little bit already. The break-even analysis is simply put the amount of sales that are required for you to pay the bills and not lose money. It's a big picture tool. So you're going to use that tool at the beginning as a macro level tool and kind of use that to go into more detail to understand what potential adjustments can be made to either your expenses or your potential revenue projection, essentially. So your break-even analysis shows you your bare minimum needed to pay off all of the costs associated with you doing business. The income statement is probably my favorite financial statement out of the cash statement, balance sheet, and this income statement. And the reason is because it shows you what your business is making in terms of sales. And it also shows you what your business has spent in terms of expenses and cost of goods sold. So what you're seeing here is essentially what your income statement is showing you in an equation format. So you're looking at the income statement, it's going to show you all of the different revenue streams, or it's going to show you sales, and then it's going to show you your cost of goods sold. If you're a service-based company, you don't have a cost of goods sold, but cost of goods sold is all of those costs associated directly with producing that product. That's different than expenses. Your expenses are not directly related to the production of that product. So something like the plastic packaging that your wine, or excuse me, that wine bottle that the wine goes in is a cost of goods sold. An expense is the electricity bill, the winery itself. So those costs of goods sold are directly associated with the production of the product, and the expenses are related to just the business existing. So after you track the cost of goods sold from your sales, the income statement will show you your gross profit. I always like to think about gross and net as the gross just being everything is gross, is everywhere, and the net is everything left after everything caught. And after you have that gross profit number, then on the income statement, you're going to list out those different expense categories and show the different types of operating expenses. And of course, I have a template for this. If you're working through a business plan, I love working on financial projections. So that's also something I love to counsel on. But after you figure out and estimate your operating expenses in those different categories, you then subtract those operating expenses from that gross profit and all of your sales and get your net income. And that is what your income statement or profit and loss statement, same term, is going to show you, is your net income, hopefully a net income, or it could potentially be a net loss. Then the last statement within the financial section is going to be the balance sheet. Now this one, the income statement will show you information over a period of time, typically over the course of a year. The balance sheet pauses and gives you information in the status of your company at a moment in time. So this balance sheet was for this exact moment and shows the assets of your company. And when you look at assets, and this isn't a full balance sheet, there's obviously a lot more detail that you can go into here that you will go into, but ultimately the assets on the balance sheet are always going to be ordered in terms of liquidity. And we just talked about liquidity. So cash is the most liquid. Your inventory should be hopefully easily converted to cash. Your equipment and real estate is not as liquid, that takes more time and effort to convert to cash. But you see that the balance sheet starts by listing everything that your company owns. Cash is an asset. What are all of your business's assets? You have your total of your assets here. The other component within the balance sheet, bottom half, shows you what your company owes, your liabilities. Liabilities include things like bank debt. That's kind of more of the long-term liability. And then your liabilities will also include that short-term debt, which is that accounts payable, where that money sits that you're expected to pay in 30 days for your bills and things like that. So those are all of your liabilities. And then the third component of the balance sheet is what the company, what the ownership owns, or what the owner has contributed, or the owner's contribution to the company, and that is the equity portion. So, and there are some different components that go into this equity portion, but for now, for simplicity's sake, you see that the owner also has a contribution of $66,000 here. Now, one thing you'll always notice about your balance sheet is that your assets are always going to equal your liabilities and equity. If you don't, you have to go back and figure out where that gap is. The reason why these two numbers are always going to equal each other is because every asset that your company owns was either purchased through a liability, debt, or purchased through owner's equity in your contribution. So those two numbers should always match up. Now, as we wrap up the presentation for today, well, first, are there any questions about financials at all? Okay. There are several different types of reporting documents you can include as appendices to your business plan. Essentially, any document that can add on and demonstrate additional success can be added on as a supporting document to your plan. So you can add on information about the market research you completed to support your narrative. You can add on any legal documents, copies of contract, documentation about the legal structure, any financial documents, any information about the equipment you may need to purchase for your company, or procedures that you've come up with, or even job description if you plan to have employees. All of this can be included. So really, you can include any supporting document if it's going to help demonstrate the business's success. And just a few quick notes about style before I let you all go. And there was a lot of things I had to learn about business planning, right? When I got into this industry, I was almost an English major back in undergrad. And so I have always been very verbose and wordy with my writing. When you're writing a business plan, it can be a little bit more succinct. You don't have to be extremely wordy, but you do want to be detailed enough so that the reader can understand what you're saying in the plan. But your business plan is almost like the business's resume. So it impacts your credibility as well as your business's. So you obviously want to make sure that it's accurate. You have complete information, correct spelling, correct math. You want to make the writing very simple and direct. And one thing I noticed, writing a business plan is not like writing a marketing document, okay? You're not writing to your customers. You're not selling to your customers within the plan. Within your business plan, you want to be realistically optimistic. You want to provide specifics and facts, but don't be flamboyant. Don't want to go overboard and say you're not using, the business plan is not written like a marketing tool. If you're using any industry terms or jargon, explain what those terms are to the reader. You obviously don't want to use any slang or acronyms, and you also want to try to write your business plan in third person. A lot of times you will see, you'll get excited and you're writing your business plan and say things like I, we. You want to try to eliminate that language. It's language like the business, the company, the owners. So try to write and approach your plan with third person. You feel free to use numbers for impact. You can use bullet points. White space is good within your plan. That's just fine. You don't want to necessarily use all caps. So you want the business plan to look very professional, have a simple and direct writing style. And in terms of length, I've seen business plans that are 5 to 10 pages, all the way up to 50. And that all depends on how you're using the plan and how much information and detail needs to be explained for the reader to understand the business's potential success. And I see April has a question here. What about if you were setting up a family business to be passed down to future generations? You can mention that, and that's going to be mentioned, April, within your organizational and management section. So there will be a subsection within that part of the plan that will allow you to describe the overall structure of your company now and how you envision that structure to be passed down over the years as well. So that can be included and should be, because it shows the reader that you are planning for the future for your company. A successful plan is going to demonstrate success based on the facts. You're not going to write in your business plan, think that we will be able to do this. Our goal is to this. No, you're going to approach the business plan based on facts and feasible hypotheses. And we already talked a little bit about the organization, the writing style there. We talked about this, no slang, writing in third person. But ultimately, when you have completed your plan, go with, and we have to make sure that it answers these questions. And anybody that's reading your plan is probably going to be looking for the answers to these questions here. Is the business idea solid? Is the business idea feasible? Is there a sufficient market for this product or service? And as you're working through your plan, try to keep these questions in front of mind, because these are the questions that you are answering within that plan. Are the financial projections that you come up with healthy and realistic? And if we do work together, you'll see that when you're working through financial projections, it's the time for you to estimate how much you think you can make, best case scenario. It's going to be the place where you estimate realistically how much you expect to make. So are those financial projections realistic? Is the key management, or do you already have an idea of what the key roles are that you're going to need within your company as it grows? So are you thinking ahead, April? Are you thinking about how the business is going to transition from generation to generation? Also, does the plan describe how the people that are going to give you this money, whether that's an investor or a lender, will get their money back? So when you're submitting your plan, when you're reading through your plan, coming up with this information, keep these questions front of mind, because they are going to help you create a feasible plan that you can take with you and use as a living, breathing roadmap for your business. And that is all I have for you all today. And before I let you all go, I will take any questions. And then while you all are compiling those questions, I'm going to grab the link for my sign-up link so that you all can get in contact with me directly, have all my contact information, get registered as a client. And if you're interested in some of our additional trainings with Eleanor and our team, or a one-on-one counseling session, we'll be able to get signed up and connected for that. But thank you all so much for joining me. And if there's no questions, I am just looking to, let me grab this link. And I will get this right to you. And I just had this link, so I apologize. And Eleanor, if you want to, you can let them know about our upcoming classes for the rest of the year as well. I hate to say that I forget that what we have coming up, but I know we have some good stuff.
I know it too, and I've got it here. We are going to, next month, we will talk about the business model canvas, more about your value proposition, and also about the art of customer discovery. And then in November, we will have a class on the basics of financial management. So I don't have links for those quite yet, but I will soon.
Okay, great. And I have posted in the chat my email address, but right above that is a direct link to get signed up and registered as an SBDC client. It also serves as a confidentiality agreement. So once you get signed up as a client, we are able to schedule one-on-ones, share resources, and correspond additionally. So I would love to hear from you all. And if you had any additional questions, I can also be reached by email there. So thank you so much, Eleanor, and I will see you all next time.
Thank you very much.